Captain Kim Dae felt his hands shake slightly as he watched New Eden grow larger on the main screen. 3 weeks had passed since the colony's last transmission. No distress call, no emergency beacon, nothing. Just silence from 50,000. People who had been living and working on humanity's most successful world beyond Earth, so were picking up thermal readings. Lieutenant Park Min called from his station. His voice sounded tired. He'd all been working without proper sleep. Since the mission began, body heat signatures matched normal human patterns throughout the settlement. But there's something wrong. Kim Dae moved closer to look at the data. The numbers showed that people were alive down there, but the energy readings were all wrong. No movement in the streets, no lights turning on and off in homes, no vehicles running. Even the factories that should have been operating around the clock showed only minimal power draw. "Take us down," he ordered. Bay 7 should still be operational. The research vessel touched down on New Eden's main landing pad with barely a whisper. Through the windows, they could see the colony spread out before them. Everything looked normal from a distance. Buildings stood intact, vehicles parked neatly in their designated areas. Gardens still green and well-maintained by automated systems. Dr. Lee Hanna gathered her equipment while the security team prepared their weapons. She had studied dozens of alien worlds, but something about this place made her stomach twist with unease. The air itself seemed heavy, pressing down on them like thick water. The airlock opened with its usual hiss, and the team stepped onto New Eden's surface. The first thing that struck them was the complete absence of sound. No voices, no machinery, no animals. Even the wind seemed muted, as if the very atmosphere was holding its breath. They walked through the main street toward the colony's central plaza. Houses lined both sides of the road, their windows dark, but showing signs of recent habitation. Meals sat half-finished, on tables visible through open doors. Clothing hung on lines, swaying gently in the breeze. "Captain, Security Chief Kang?" Min whispered into his communicator. "Have visuals on colonists." Kim Dae hurried to catch up with the advance team. What he saw made his blood freeze. A woman sat on a park bench, her eyes wide open and staring at nothing. Her chest rose and fell with steady breathing, but she showed no awareness of their presence. A child's ball rested at her feet, as if it had rolled there and stopped. More colonists came into view as they moved deeper into the settlement. A man stood perfectly still next to a fountain, one hand extended, as if he had been about to touch the water. 2 teenagers sat on steps leading to a school, their school bags beside them, faces blank and expressionless. "They're all breathing," Dr. Lee Hanna observed, scanning one of the motionless figures with her medical equipment. "Heart rates are normal. Brain activity shows they're alive, but the patterns are strange. It's like their minds are somewhere else." Most disturbing, discovery came in the children's playground. Young colonists remained frozen in the middle of their games. A girl hung motionless from monkey bars, her small hands still gripping the metal rungs. Boys and girls stood scattered around a sandbox, their plastic toys abandoned where they had dropped them. Every face they encountered wore the same expression of absolute terror. Not the quick fear of sudden danger, but the deep, soul-crushing horror of something so terrible that it had broken their minds completely. "Sir, you need to see this," Parkman called from near the colony's administrative building. Strange blue crystals had grown from the ground and walls, some reaching as high as a person's waist. They pulsed with soft light, creating an eerie glow in the gathering dusk. Dr. Lee Hanna approached the nearest crystal formation with her scanner. The readings made no sense. The structures seemed to be both organic and artificial at the same time. Energy flowed through them in patterns that reminded her of neural networks, but far more complex than any human brain. "The crystals are definitely connected to what happened here," she reported. "They're drawing power from somewhere, but I can't identify the source. The energy signature doesn't match anything in our databases." As darkness fell over New Eden, emergency lighting systems activated automatically throughout the colony. The soft illumination only made the scene more haunting. Thousands of people stood or sat in perfect stillness, their shadows stretching long across empty streets. The research team set up a temporary camp in the colony's main hall. But sleep came hard. Every time someone closed their eyes, they could feel the weight of all those blank stares. Crystals continued their gentle pulsing throughout the night, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Kim Dae stood watch during the early morning hours, looking out at the silent settlement. Whatever had happened to New Eden's colonists, it had been swift and complete. No signs of struggle, no evidence of violence, just 50,000 people reduced to empty shells, their minds stolen away by something beyond human understanding. The rescue mission had become a mystery that would shake the very foundations of humanity's expansion into the stars. Dr. Choi Won rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the clock on his laboratory wall. 3 days had passed since he began studying the crystal samples from New Eden. He had barely slept, barely eaten, driven by the need to understand what had destroyed the minds of 50,000 colonists. The crystals sat under bright lights. On his examination table, still pulsing with that strange blue glow, his equipment showed readings that made no scientific sense. The structures appeared to be made of unknown materials, but they also showed signs of biological activity. Were neither fully alive nor completely artificial. Computer-run analysis sequence 47, he said, his voice hoarse from exhaustion. The machine hummed to life, scanning the largest crystal fragment with deep penetration sensors. The results appeared on his screen, and Choi Won felt his heart skip a beat. The energy patterns inside the crystals looked exactly like brainwave activity, not human patterns, but something far more complex and alien. It was as if each crystal contained a piece of living consciousness. He leaned closer to examine the data. When something changed in the air around him, the temperature dropped several degrees and the hair on his arms stood up. A sound reached his ears, so quiet he almost missed it, like wind through leaves or distant voices speaking words he could not understand. Then the whisper came, clear and cold, inside his mind. Your thoughts taste of curiosity and fear. Such interesting flavors. Choi Won jumped back from his equipment, knocking over his chair. The voice had not come through his ears, but it appeared directly in his consciousness, as if someone was speaking from inside his own head. "Who's there?" he called out, looking around the empty laboratory. "Show yourself." Soft laughter echoed in his mind, the sound of something ancient and patient. "We have no physical form as you understand it, small creature. We are the Veil Weavers, born from the spaces between thoughts, feeding on the essence of consciousness itself." Images suddenly flooded Choi Won's vision. He saw worlds spinning in space, covered with cities and life. Then darkness fell over them and the cities became quiet. Billions of beings stood motionless, just like the colonists on New Eden there. Minds harvested while their bodies remained alive but empty. "This is what we do," the voice continued, sounding pleased with itself. "We travel from star to star, seeking species with rich mental lives. Your kind is particularly delicious. Each human mind contains such wonderful complexity, memories of love and loss, dreams of the future, fears that make consciousness more flavorful." More visions came. Choi Won saw the Veil Weavers moving through space as beings of pure energy, invisible to normal detection methods. They had been doing this for thousands of years, maybe millions. Entire galactic civilizations had fallen to their harvest, leaving behind only empty shells of former greatness. "You're monsters," Choi Won whispered, his hands shaking as he gripped the edge of his laboratory table. "Monsters?" The voice seemed genuinely confused. "We preserve life, little one. Look at your colonists, they breathe. Their hearts beat. Their bodies remain healthy. We simply remove the burden of consciousness, the pain of thinking and feeling. Is this not kindness? They will never again suffer sadness or fear or anger." The alien presence showed him more images of their work. Species after species, reduced to the same peaceful state. The Veil Weavers presented it as mercy, as freedom from the struggles of conscious existence. "We have been watching your species expand into the stars," the voice continued. "So young, so full of vibrant thoughts and emotions, your colonies will provide us with feeding grounds for centuries to come. Each human mind we harvest makes us stronger, more capable of seeking out new sources of nourishment." Choi Won realized with growing horror that humanity was not the first target, nor would it be the last. The Veil Weavers saw all conscious life as nothing more than food to be consumed. They felt no guilt, no remorse, because they truly believed. They were being merciful by preserving the bodies while consuming the minds. Your friend on New Eden fought so hard, the voice said with something like fondness. We could taste his determination even as we fed on his consciousness. The children were sweeter, their minds not yet hardened by adult worries. Each one provided unique flavors we had never experienced before. The communication officer Nam Gil's voice suddenly crackled over the laboratory's intercom system. Dr. Choi, we're receiving your emergency beacon. What's your status? Choi Wan lunged for the communication panel, his fingers flying over the controls. Nam Gil, open an immediate channel to Earth Command. Priority Alpha, we have first contact. With a hostile alien intelligence? What kind of hostile? Nam Gil asked, concern clear in his voice. The kind that eats minds, Choi Wan replied, looking back at the crystals that continued their gentle pulsing. They're not here to invade our worlds or steal our resources. They're here to harvest human consciousness itself, and they think they're doing us a favor. The whisper came one last time before fading away. Soon, little scientist, soon you will know the peace we offer. Choi Wan began recording his report for Earth Command, knowing that humanity now faced an enemy unlike anything they had ever imagined. Admiral Yunsu stood before the massive holographic display in Earth's deepest military bunker. The blue lights showed 17 star systems, each one marked with a red warning symbol. 17 human colonies that had gone completely silent in the past 30 days. The pattern was becoming clear and terrifying. Gentlemen, we are no longer dealing with isolated incidents, she announced to the room full of Earth's highest-ranking military officers. The enemy is moving faster than we initially calculated. They're harvesting our colonies at an increasing rate. The hologram zoomed in on each affected system. New Eden had been just the beginning. After that came Promise Station, then Harmony World, followed by the mining colonies on Kepler 7. Each time, the same result, thousands of humans reduced to empty shells, while alien crystals fed on their stolen consciousness. The intelligence. Reports from Dr. Choi Wan are clear, Admiral Yoon continued. These Veil Weavers consider us nothing more than livestock. They see our physical bodies as primitive, our technology as basic tools wielded by simple minds. They believe we are incapable of any meaningful resistance. General Park Ho, a veteran of the Martian Independence War, leaned forward in his chair. Admiral, how do we fight an enemy we cannot see? How do we shoot at beings made of pure thought? Doctor. Kang Ji stepped forward from his position near the data screens. As Earth's leading expert in theoretical physics, he had been working around the clock since the first reports came in from New Eden. His clothes were wrinkled, his eyes red from lack of sleep, but his voice was steady and confident. Weavers exist as psychic energy, but they still need to interact with our physical universe, he explained. They use those crystal structures as anchor points, ways to focus their consciousness into our reality. If we can disrupt the energy, patterns that hold them together, we might be able to hurt them. The doctor activated his own holographic display, showing complex mathematical equations and energy wave patterns. I've been studying the readings from all 17 colonies. The aliens operate on specific frequencies like radio waves, but far more complex. If we can generate opposing frequencies, we might be able to tear apart their energy matrices. Admiral Yoon nodded slowly. What do you need? Time, resources, and absolute secrecy, Dr. Kong replied. If the Veil Weavers discover we're preparing, countermeasures, they might accelerate their harvest or change their methods. We need them to remain confident in their superiority. Across the solar system, humanity began its greatest mobilization in history. In the shipyards of Luna Station, engineer Hong Su worked with her team to redesign military vessels. The new ships looked similar to standard Earth Navy cruisers, but their hulls contained networks of specially tuned electromagnetic generators. The hull plating will act like a massive antenna, Hong Su explained to her construction crews. Activated, the entire ship becomes a weapon designed to disrupt psychic energy patterns. The aliens won't know what hit them until it's too late. Meanwhile, on Mars military base, weapons specialist Bei Min developed entirely new types of ammunition. Traditional bullets and missiles would pass harmlessly through beings of pure energy, but his new designs were different. Each projectile contained a small device that could create temporary tears in dimensional space. The Veil Weavers exist partially in our dimension and partially in others, Bei Min told his weapons team. These rounds will create instabilities in the dimensional barriers they use to anchor themselves. Think of it as shooting holes in the fabric of reality itself. The work proceeded in absolute radio silence. No communications were sent between facilities. No digital records were kept that might be intercepted. Every human involved in the project was sworn to secrecy and monitored constantly to ensure no leaks occurred. General Parko coordinated the massive undertaking from his command center. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, hundreds of ships were being retrofitted with the new anti-psychic systems. Thousands of soldiers were being trained in new combat techniques designed specifically for fighting energy-based enemies. The Veil Weavers have been feeding on civilizations for millions of years, he told his staff officers. They've never faced a species that responded to psychic predation with physical warfare. Their entire approach is based on the assumption that consciousness-based attacks cannot be countered by material weapons. Intelligence reports continued to flow in from the affected colonies. The aliens were growing bolder, taking larger settlements, and harvesting them more quickly. They showed no signs of caution or concern about potential retaliation. In their ancient arrogance, they could not conceive of primitive humans posing any real threat. Dr. Kong Ji worked 8-hour days refining his theoretical models. The key is surprise, he told Admiral Yoon during one of their planning sessions. Once we attack, they'll adapt quickly. We need to hit them everywhere at once, with enough force to completely destroy their ability to harvest human minds. The final piece of the plan came together when long-range scouts identified the locations of major Veil Weaver strongholds. These were massive concentrations of the alien crystals. Processing facilities where stolen consciousness was prepared for consumption. Destroying these sites would cripple the aliens' ability to feed. Humanity's response was taking shape in the darkness of space, hidden from alien detection by careful planning and absolute determination. The Veil Weavers would soon learn that their newest prey had teeth sharper than they could imagine. Captain Elise so gripped the armrests of her command chair as her battle fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Around her, 16 other human fleets were doing the same thing across distant star systems. After months of secret preparation, humanity's counterattack had finally begun. All ships report ready, Captain, her communications officer announced. Psychic disruptors are charged and operational. Through the main viewport, Liso could see the primary Veil Weaver feeding facility. It looked like a massive crystal city floating in space, pulsing with the blue light they had learned to hate. Inside those structures were the stolen minds of billions of beings from dozens of different worlds, all processed and prepared for alien consumption. Begin the attack, she ordered quietly. The experimental weapons fired simultaneously from every ship in the fleet. Beams of disrupted energy struck the alien constructs, and something extraordinary happened. The crystal structures began to crack and shatter, revealing forms of pure energy that writhed in visible agony. For the first time in millions of years, the Veil Weavers experienced physical pain. Their mental screams erupted across space, so loud and desperate that every human within 1,000 kilometers felt them like knives in their minds. The aliens had never imagined that creatures of flesh and blood could hurt beings of pure thought. Impossible. The collective voice of the Veil Weavers echoed in the minds of every human in the fleet. You are nothing but primitive matter. You cannot harm us? But Liso's weapons proved them wrong with each devastating blast. The dimensional charges tore holes in the fabric of space itself, exposing the aliens to the harsh reality of physical existence. Energy beings that had never known pain suddenly found themselves bleeding light and screaming in frequencies that shattered their own crystal anchors. Target the feeding chambers, Liso commanded. Free every mind they've stolen. The human Fleet moved through the alien facility like an unstoppable force. Each section they destroyed released clouds of captured consciousness back into the universe. Some minds had been held for centuries, others for just days. All of them began their journey back to their original bodies as the Veil Weaver processing. Systems collapsed. On the surface of New Eden, Commander Kim Tae watched his neural restoration devices work their magic. The technology, developed specifically for this mission, slowly reconnected stolen minds to their waiting bodies. One by one, the colonists began to blink, to move, to remember who they were. "Sarah?" A man called out as he saw his wife's eyes. Focus for the first time in weeks. "Sarah, can you hear me?" The woman looked around in confusion, then threw her arms around her husband as memories flooded back. Across the colony, similar scenes played out as families were reunited and communities began to heal, but the liberation of New Eden was just the beginning. As each human fleet completed its assault on Veil Weaver facilities, they discovered something remarkable. The stolen consciousness from different worlds retained memories of other alien strongholds, other feeding grounds scattered across the galaxy, Captain, the intelligence officer reported to Liso. "We're receiving location data from the freed alien minds. The Veil Weavers have feeding facilities in over 300 star systems." Liso smiled grimly. "Then we'll visit every single one." The campaign expanded beyond anything humanity had originally planned. As word spread through the galaxy that the ancient predators were finally being fought, other species emerged from hiding to join the war. Races that had survived Veil Weaver attacks by retreating to hidden worlds now came forward with ships and weapons of their own. The Karathi Empire, which had lost 17 homeworlds to the aliens centuries ago, brought their powerful war fleets. The peaceful Helen Federation contributed their advanced medical technology to help heal the liberated minds. Even the mysterious Voidwalkers, who rarely interacted with other species, appeared to offer their knowledge of dimensional warfare. But it was humanity that led the charge, and humanity that showed no mercy to the enemies who had treated conscious beings as nothing more than food. The Veil Weavers, for the first time in their ancient existence, knew fear. They tried to negotiate, offering to leave human space alone if the attack stopped. They attempted to hide in deeper dimensions, only to find human weapons following them there. They even tried to flee to the edge of the galaxy, but found human fleets waiting for them. "Please," their collective voice pleaded during one final encounter. "We did not know you could fight back. We thought we were being merciful, preserving your bodies while taking only your minds." General Parko, leading the final assault on the last known Veil Weaver stronghold, responded with words that would be remembered throughout galactic history. "You took the thoughts and dreams and memories of innocent people. You stole their love, their hopes, their very souls. There is no mercy for creatures like you." Last Veil Weaver facility crumbled under the combined assault of a dozen species, all united in their determination to end the ancient threat. The energy beings that had fed on consciousness for millions of years were finally and completely destroyed. Across the galaxy, worlds that had been silent for centuries began to stir as stolen minds found their way home. The age of the Veil Weavers was over, ended not by other psychic entities, but by determined creatures of flesh and blood who refused to accept that conscious beings could be treated as livestock. Humanity's roar of vengeance had indeed been loud enough to shake the very foundations of space itself. Captain Omin watched through his command viewport as the final Veil Weaver stronghold collapsed into itself. The massive crystal structure, which had processed stolen minds for thousands of years, cracked apart in a shower of dimensional fire. Pieces of alien architecture tumbled through space, their blue glow fading to nothing as the last of the psychic predators died. "All enemy signatures have gone dark, Captain," his tactical officer reported. "No energy readings, no psychic emanations. The target is completely destroyed." Min nodded slowly. After 18 months of warfare across hundreds of star systems, the campaign was finally over. The ancient enemy that had fed on consciousness itself had been completely eliminated from the galaxy. Not a single Veil Weaver remained alive. "Send the message to Earth Command," he ordered. "Mission accomplished. Galaxy is free." News of the victory spread faster than light itself as communication networks carried the announcement to every corner of known space. Species that had hidden in fear for generations emerged from their sheltered worlds, hardly daring to believe that the nightmare was truly over. The Thalo Assembly, whose beautiful crystalline cities had been reduced to silent tombs centuries ago, sent their fastest ships to Earth. Ambassador Cathara, speaking through translation devices, addressed the human leadership with words that carried the weight of overwhelming gratitude. "Your kind has accomplished what we thought impossible," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "For 800 years, our people lived in constant terror of the harvest. Our children were taught to hide their thoughts, to make their minds as small and unappetizing as possible. You have given us back our freedom to think and dream." Similar messages arrived from across the galaxy. The peaceful Helen Federation sent artistic tributes created by minds that were finally free to express themselves. The warrior clans of the Outer Rim, who had spent generations preparing for a final battle they never expected to survive, now laid down their weapons and began to rebuild their shattered civilizations. On New Eden, Dr. Jung-ha continued her work with the liberated colonists. The neural restoration process was slow and careful, requiring weeks or months to fully reconnect minds that had been separated from their bodies. But every success was a small miracle, every recovered memory a victory against the darkness that had nearly consumed them. "Doctor, can you help me understand what happened?" asked Maria Chen, one of the colonists who had been among the first to recover. She sat in the medical center, holding her young daughter's hand as the child slowly returned to awareness. "The Veil Weavers fed on consciousness," Dr. Jung-ha explained gently. "They believed they were being merciful by keeping your bodies alive while they consumed your minds. But they didn't understand that consciousness isn't just thoughts and memories. It's the essence of who you are, your connections to the people you love, your hopes for the future." Maria nodded, tears streaming down her face as she watched her daughter's eyes begin to focus. "I remember the moment it started. There was this whisper, so quiet I almost didn't notice it, like someone breathing words into my ear from very far away." "Many survivors describe it the same way," the doctor replied. "The aliens approached their victims gently, almost lovingly. They truly believed they were offering a gift by removing the burden of consciousness." In the weeks that followed, testimonies from across the galaxy painted a similar picture. The Veil Weavers had always begun their harvest with soft whispers, gentle touches on the mind that grew stronger until consciousness was completely separated from the body.
Ow.
Their victims had experienced the theft of their very souls as something peaceful and inevitable. But humanity's response had been anything but gentle. Admiral Yunsu stood before the Galactic Council, addressing representatives from over 200 different species. The Great Hall buzzed with the sounds of dozens of different languages. As translation systems worked to convey her words to every delegation present, the Veil Weavers saw consciousness as something to be consumed, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. They treated thinking, feeling beings as nothing more than food sources. When they came for our colonies, they expected us to accept their harvest as inevitable. She paused, looking out at the assembled representatives. Many of them were species that had suffered under Veil Weaver predation for generations. Others were civilizations that had only recently learned of the threat, they whispered softly, to their victims, promising peace and freedom from the burden of thought. But when humanity answered, we did not whisper. We roared our defiance across the stars themselves, and that roar shattered their ancient kingdom of terror. The applause that followed was unlike anything the Galactic Council had ever heard. Representatives from species that had never before agreed on anything stood together in recognition of humanity's achievement. In the months that followed, new colonies were established in systems that had been abandoned for centuries. Worlds that had been silent for generations began to show signs of life again as their populations slowly healed from the trauma of mental harvesting. The galaxy was quiet now, but it was a different kind of silence. Not the oppressive hush of the harvest, but the peaceful calm of safety. Children could play without fear, artists could create without hiding their thoughts, and philosophers, could explore the deepest questions of existence without worrying that their consciousness might attract hungry predators. And in that new silence, the echo of humanity's fury continued to resonate as a warning to anyone who might threaten the innocent. Their victims might cry out softly, but humanity's answer would be loud enough to burn suns.